What's up YouTube, this is GalacticGod and I'm coming at you now with a video discussing some early ban list thoughts and predictions. So these are really just my views on cards that I think either should or will be hit on the upcoming January 1st, 2014 Forbidden list. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into things with cards that I think should be banned. Now, right off the bat, the card that I'm sure everyone's going to have on their list of predictions is this, 6th Sense. This card is uber busted and broken. I don't think that anyone out there can truly deny that. I, for one, was pretty happy that Konami at least allowed us to have this card for the half a format or whatever that they did. I am a big proponent for at least allowing duelists to try cards out, especially ones that we never had over here in the TCG before. So the fact that at least we got to play this card out for the half a format or whatever it was, I think was pretty cool on Konami's behalf. Now I know a lot of other duelists don't necessarily share that same opinion, but I really feel that it was kind of cool that we got to use it. Now, Sixth Sense is really the only card I think that is for sure going to end up on the Forbidden list. A lot of people might be screaming their heads off right now, especially about this card, Return from a Different Dimension. But I actually think there's a couple different scenarios, one where, or a couple really, where Return ends up on the Forbidden list, and one where it actually stays off. So I'm going to dive into that one first, because I'm sure that's what's got a lot of people wondering, like, how could Return possibly not go up on the list? Or how could you think Return shouldn't be banned? Well, one of the things that they could do to not have Return banned is actually limit all of the grown-up dragons, if you will. By limiting Blaster, Tempest, Redox, and Tidal to 1, you can then unlimit the baby dragons and take them off of the Forbidden list. Because with all the main dragon rulers now limited down to 1, there's really no reason for the babies to be on the list, and thus no reason to ban Return from a Different Dimension. I believe at that point dragon rulers will be sufficiently neutered. They will no longer be an actual deck upon themselves. The dragon rulers themselves will just be cards that you tech into other elemental kind of decks. Now, Konami could go in a different direction, and oftentimes they do. We all know that the Wave 2 tins have just been released in time for the Christmas holidays. Now, coincidentally, this does kind of coincide with when the new Forbidden/Limited list comes out, and this could affect the list in many ways, as they are still wanting to sell the second wave of tins, which mainly focuses on the last half of the Dragon Rulers in holographic form that we didn't get before. Now, for this purpose, Konami could not limit the Dragon Rulers down to 1. They could just limit them to 2, for instance, and keep the babies, on the list. At that point, I think Return, definitely should get hit and put on the ban list. Another thing that they could do, which is very Konami, is that they could do nothing to the Dragon Rulers. They can leave them there for a whole nother format, another 4 months if you will, just so that they make sure they get the optimal cells off of the tins, at which point I believe Return from a Different Dimension should definitely go on the list. Now, there are 3 cards that are currently on the Forbidden/Limited list that I think have the potential to come off and be limited to 1. The first one being that of Elemental Hero Stratos. A lot of people were in a big uproar when Konami first announced that this card was going to be banned. And then as the format kind of took shape, a lot of people really questioned, like, why is Stratos even banned? I don't understand why he's there. I think he could definitely come off. I think many other duelists out there would agree that there's no reason for Stratos to be kept on the list. I mean, all it does is make Heroes a viable deck, and not even really that much of a viable deck, as even when they had Stratos and their full onslaught of support, they never really did that much in the meta. I mean, every now and then they would sneak into a top 8 or even, top a YCS and win one, but what's the harm with them topping or winning a YCS every once in a while? Nothing. Moving on, I also believe that one card that I think could come off the list is Magician of Faith. This card has been on the list for way too long, especially with all the super powerhouse spells now being forbidden except for that of Dark Hole, which could always end up on Konami's radar as well. I really don't see a reason why Magician of Faith needs to be still lingering on that list. I think if nothing else, we should take it off for a format and see how it does. I mean, what's the worst that could happen is in 4 months later we put it back on the list if we think that it's too broken. But I don't even think that's going to be the case. A lot of people also feared Tsukiyomi when it came off the list, and what had that card done? Nothing. It went from 1 to 2 to 3, and not a lot of people still use it. The final card that I think has the potential to come off the list and be limited to 1 is that of Sinister Serpent. Now, I know that's going to probably anger a lot of people, but I really feel that Sinister has been on there too long as well. we haven't seen this card really since the end of GOAT Control. A lot of people are fearful that Sinister Serpent will allow cards like Divine Wrath or Magic Jammer to become super playable, but what's wrong with having those cards playable? What's wrong with actually having a reason to play those cards? I mean, I was around when Sinister Serpent was first out, and we had Magic Jammer and Divine Wrath and Phoenix Wing Windblast, and those cards were not so abusable even with Sinister Serpent. So there's a few other cards that I think should be limited to one. First being Sphere. This card is way too broken in my opinion, and definitely gives Mermails too much of an advantage, and I think that card should be limited to one. Spellbook Magician. I mean, some people make the argument that Secrets is the bigger problem, so I guess you could go either way. But I think definitely one of those cards, either Magician or Secrets, needs to get hit down to one. So cards that I believe should be now limited to two include Macrocosmos, Dimensional Fissure, Soul Drain. These cards, they allow certain kind of side decking, I think. They're very important for the game, and I don't know why they're limited to one. Another card that's been on a lot of people's radar is Black Whirlwind. Some say that it should be limited to two, some say back to limited to one. I think it's perfectly fine at three. It makes Black Wings a very playable deck. It allows it to keep up with the meta, and I don't think there's nothing wrong with having Black Wing playable. Finally, the last card I think that should be limited to two is Gladiator Beast Bestiari. This card has spent way too much time on the limited list. I mean, Gladiator Beasts haven't done, what, nothing in a half a decade? There's time for this card to at least go back to two and see what happens in the meta. I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact even at two. Now there's also rumblings of new Gladiator Beast support coming out, which is cool. I mean, having Bestiari at two, a new Gladiator Beast support coming out will you know, get interest in the deck going and get people wanting to play the deck once more and try it out. And there's no really good reason that I think of that why Bestiari should remain at one on the list. As for making certain cards unlimited, I've heard a lot of people talk about having Tour Guide back at 3 now, or even Reborn Tengu back at 3, but I just don't see either one of those happening. Tour Guide has a better chance of going to 3 than Tengu. I can't imagine Tengu ever coming back to 3, at least anytime soon. But Tour Guide is definitely a more easier pill to swallow in my opinion, at least going back to 3. Alright YouTube, and there you have it. Those were some of my early ban list thoughts and predictions. Now I'm sure there's going to be a good number of people out there who don't necessarily agree with my choices. In the comment section below, make sure to let me know what you think should be hit on the list, what you think should come off, what should be limited, semi-limited, anything like that, and then maybe we can get a discussion going. Perhaps you can persuade me to change my mind on a couple of my decisions. We shall see. And I guess that's going to do it for now. This is GalacticGod, out.